Is Candace Owens officially evil? And I ask this as someone who used to admire her, especially when she was calling out Black Lives Matter for their demonstrably false narratives about Black men being systematically targeted for execution by white supremacist officers. I mean, I think that's actually the narrative that they were pushing out there, if you were to put it into words. And it was great that a Black female like Candace Owens had the courage to make herself public and known and call this out for the falsehood that it was, and to see the pattern of when Black Lives Matter seemed to be the most active, and when you had the most protests that almost always devolved into riots, it was during presidential election years and midterm election years. And you could look this up with the major ones. George Floyd was a presidential election year. Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown, I believe those were midterm election years. Anyway, without getting into all those details, I used to admire her. I thought that she was like this new breed of journalist at one point. And yeah, I thought she was actually doing a public good by speaking the things that she was speaking, and so boldly as she was. She's incredibly talented. There's no doubt about that. Especially, I'm discovering this now as someone who is trying to grow a channel. Because anyway, without getting into all the details of my own narcissism, which is what I definitely see in people like her, and it's fine. It's sometimes the narcissism is required, I guess. But I really want to communicate things that are true, and more than anything, I would like to help solve problems. And better than solving the problems, help people avoid the problems so there's nothing to solve and we have more time to enjoy on this finite life of ours on this planet. And that's why I also ask, is Candace Owens officially evil? And I ask it as an atheist, because I don't believe that Candace Owens is possessed by demonic spirits, or much less this cartoon character named Satan, and without getting too sidetracked with how we can so easily see through the falsehoods that are every single religion, and especially their major principles, and that they're all man-made. Aside from that, it's important to, the point I'd really like to make is, it's important to see reality for what it is, and religion blinds us to that. And sometimes religion blinds us to the very evil it's trying to warn us about, because since religions are not based on reality, they're not based on evidence, they're just spiritual claims for the most part, they blind us to these things. And they blind us to people like Vladimir Putin, and who is the real evil, one of. I think he's like a modern day Hitler, I would say. He would probably go for an even higher body count if allowed to, if he can get away with it. And what I guess what I'm trying to point out by pointing out that I'm an atheist and I'm still asking, is Candace Owens evil, is because even as an atheist who does not believe in demonic spirits or any of that nonsense, I think evil is still a very useful word. It is a very quick identifier of people who will create needless harm upon others for their own selfish gain. And their selfish gain is usually just as needless as the suffering they're causing others. I know it's kind of a mouthful, but whatever. I've written a little article that I've posted up on Substack, which I'll link down below. Hopefully, in words, it'll make more sense. In other words, people who, yeah, they're, and in the case of Vladimir Putin, especially, I would almost even say that the spectrum of evil is a spectrum. And Putin, and especially Hitler and the others of the past, they're at the ultimate extreme of that spectrum. I think someone like Candace Owens is inching her way towards the Putin status of evil, the Putin level of evil. And she's been doing so, it seems, ever since she's been fired from the Daily Wire. And yeah, especially with, I mean, calling out Emmanuel Macron, France's president, Emmanuel Macron's wife, to be a man. It's almost sort of funny, but whatever, it's quite damaging, causing needless stress for that family and whatnot. And it's so easy to debunk, and it has been already. But it's scary how many people have fallen for it. It's scary how many people I actually know that believe this. And then, I was like, oh, wow, she's inching further and further once she started implicating Erica Kirk in the murder of her own husband, Charlie Kirk. That was when I was like, wow, this woman is really, she must be desperate for income. I mean, like, why are you doing this? I thought she was like a bona fide journalist at one point, but apparently not. And now with her meeting people like Alexander Dugin, who is basically Putin's modern day Rasputin, I guess. He's like the voice behind the evil, the philosopher. He is the philosopher behind Putin and all the junk, which there's enough other people who've dissected the things that Alexander Dugin believes about the Antichrist. Once again, why we really need to get away from religion and all the nonsense that he's pushing. But from what I understand, what Putin ultimately is really trying to do is he's trying to divert attention away from his mass murder machine. He's trying to, I don't even think he can legitimize it, but hey, let's make sure that we get the attention away from us. How about we do this by basically breaking down the conservative movement in the United States? Let's start splintering them. And I think someone like Candace Owens will be easily bought and sold for this message. And she's really big on Christianity. And, always framing things like, oh my God, but, did you hear about what happened to the Christians over in such and such part of the world? Instead of looking at it as like, hey, did you realize what's happening to humanity in other parts of the world, regardless of whether they're Christian or Muslim or Hindu or whatever? And I believe that's one of her talking points in the legitimization of Vladimir Putin, that, Christians are not being persecuted in Russia. No, it's just that the Russians themselves, whether they're Christian or not, are the ones that are being dragged to a needless war and being slaughtered by the tens of thousands. I think it's, what is it now? Well over 100,000 Russians have needlessly died in the invasion of Ukraine, not to mention what's happened to the Ukrainians themselves. And regardless of whether they're Christian or not, they're human beings. And she doesn't give a shit. Because apparently, I don't know what the paycheck is, whatever. Maybe it's just the narcissism. Maybe she is just such a neurological psychopath and therefore a malignant narcissist that she would rather be hated than ignored. But I think for her, she can't afford to be ignored. She needs not only the clicks, but she needs people either buying the merchandise, whatever it is. And it's scary that it's scary. Let me finish off the thought. It's scary that people like Candace Owens exist, but even scarier, of course, are the Vladimir Putins of the world. And right now with Iran and with Cuba, the Castros of the world and the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps of the world and the Kim family of North Korea. It's scary how life works, which is why I think a lot of people believe in religions. It's a psychological coping mechanism, but based on very short-sighted thinking and very easy answers. And it's amazing how long those belief systems that are demonstrably fabricated and you can easily debunk them, people continue holding on to them, because of the false hopes they give them. But the problem is that religions, I think almost all religions, speak of evil, but because they're not founded in evidence and they're not grounded in reality and there's no scientific method behind any of their claims to back them up, they blind us to the real evil. And people like Putin and what he's doing, and then the fact that someone like Putin can hire someone like Candace Owens to, wash the blood off his hands or to at least distract from it. And that's what I find quite frightening. That kind of evil, the real evil that there is out there. And that's why I like to conclude this video with a very simple message, which is enlighten up. For people to just enlighten up, to see through the falsehoods, to see through the obvious obfuscation by people like Candace Owens, and to see who the real villain is between Putin and Zelensky. Hint, it's not Zelensky. It's crazy. It's crazy. All the confusion, the confusion, and especially by people who claim to be moralists and claim to be on the side of God and Jesus. And by the way, I grew up Christian. That's why I'm as atheist as I am, I think, because I grew up as a good Catholic boy, and I really did actually. I took the extra step of reading the Bible, and I think that's what kind of did me in. Once I started reading the actual words and realized what. Anyway, I don't want to make this video too long. I hope the message is somewhat clear in this single take diatribe that I'm putting out there. And I hope it travels. And I hope it gets as many views as I hope it will, as someone like Candace Owens has managed, to get. But I would almost say unjustly. It is almost a cosmic injustice that someone like Candace Owens is still being believed and followed to the degree that she is. And well, even more of that cosmic injustice, I would say, that Vladimir Putin is still in power. That's a greater injustice. Anywho, with all that said, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, check out the links below for my original art and merchandise like this. And thanks for watching.